Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Saint-Saëns, Essential Works for Beginners. Yeah, you really ought to have the essential Saint-Saëns because his music is fabulous. He was really one of the handful of great composers in the second half of the 19th century, and he is the most neglected and looked down upon. And the reason is because he was French. And French people, French composers, were not supposed to be writing instrumental music and orchestral works, symphonies, concertos, chamber music. I mean, he did the usual French thing. He wrote operas and oratorios and stage works, but only one of those had any success, and that's his opera/oratorio, Samson and Dalilah. And we'll talk about that in a minute. All the others were neglected or ignored. It's not that they were failures. Some of them are marvelous, but they get no attention, none whatsoever. So the only works of his that were deemed worthy of saving were orchestral works or instrumental pieces. And those, because they were competing with the glorious classics of the German school, were looked down upon. And they were looked down upon not just so much in Germany. I mean, after all, Richard Strauss's father, who was incredibly conservative, loved Saint-Saëns because he was obviously a composer who understood and paid homage to the German school. And he did it in a way which was not radical. I mean, he really wasn't. He wasn't a radical. He was a radical in some ways. It's sort of orchestral ways in terms of his audacity and his handling of instruments, but not so much harmonically, not in terms of his process. So he had his fans, but he was detested in England more than anything else. Why? Because he was French, because England in the 19th century had nobody to compete with anybody except for Sir Arthur Sullivan, who of course is the greatest English composer ever, and I'm not kidding. And so for that reason, if you grew up in the United States, forget the rest of the world. I'll tell you what, if you're an English speaker, we took our cues from Europe, and we took our cues from English-speaking Europe. And the English school, such as it was largely trained in Leipzig, in the school of Mendelssohn and his followers. And a master like Saint-Saëns, who was a child genius, I mean, incredibly brilliant and precocious, was absolutely dismissed. His relevance was ignored. The only way you got any cred in England in the 19th century is if you wrote big sacred oratorios, and Gounod wrote a bunch of those, and he wrote some of them for England. So he was, he came to worship at the Holy Handel Shrine in London and got some attention for those. But all of the others, the opera composers, the instrumental music composers, anyone who did anything else who was French, got shat upon, and still do. I mean, it's still there. There are remnants of that sort of nationalist bigotry, which is what it is, that was rampant in all of Europe, depending on what country you were in. It wasn't just the English, of course. Everybody hated everybody else, and they all had attitude. But we acquired our attitude from that attitude. And so Saint-Saëns is still really waiting, I think, in the musical world, in the English-speaking world, particularly for his due. So we're giving him his due. I've got 10 works here that give him his due, and you're going to give him his due because the music is gorgeous, fabulous, and wonderful. And the 10 works are, you ready? First, the Danse macabre. 7 minutes, 6 minutes. It's a little tone poem. You know it. You've heard it. You've seen it on cartoons when the skeletons play the xylophone on their rib cages and Halloween things and whatnot. The tune, da 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 ya da 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 da. Oh, it's wonderful. Originally, it was a song with orchestra. The song is just terrible. Don't ever listen to the vocal part. But he turned it into a full-fledged symphonic poem that caused a riot. Why? Because it used a xylophone. You see, Saint-Saëns was was, from a formal point of view, somewhat conservative. But in terms of his feeling for sound and the things he did with the orchestra, he was right up there with the progressives. He was a very good friend of Liszt, who was, the arch progressive in German music of the time. So he falls between the cracks. That was another thing that sort of counted against him as time went on. When he was young, he was considered quite adventurous. As he got older, he was considered quite conservative, and he just couldn't win. But the Danse macabre is it's 7 fabulous minutes, and you already know it. If you don't know it, you're going to love it. And if you love it, you're going to love all the rest of this stuff. What could be a better introduction? And a quicker one. I mean, it's short and peppy and amazing. So, Piano Concerto number 2. Another gorgeous work. He wrote 5 piano concertos. They are all wonderful, all worth listening to. Only a couple of them get any attention, and the second is the one that gets the most. And there's a good reason for it. It's formally interesting. It begins actually with sort of a slowish movement. Then it has a scherzo, and then it has a brilliant tarantella finale. And like most of his works, he writes really good tunes. Lovely, lovely tunes. The scherzo of the middle movement has the most delicious tune. Da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Oh, it's just great. Absolutely great. And again, it's 100% enjoyment for like 25 minutes. What could be bad? Part of the problem with Saint-Saëns music for some people is that it goes down so easily. It's all just mellifluous. It's beautiful. Saint-Saëns himself said, anyone who does not understand the beauty in a simple series of chords, perfect only in their relationship and, in their arrangement and relationship to each other, really doesn't understand anything about music. And he had a point. He really had a point. Next, his most popular work, or his most famous work after the Danse macabre, well, no, it's up there in the top 4 or 5. The Third Symphony, the Organ Symphony. It has an organ, it has piano, it has all kinds of interesting things symphonies aren't supposed to have. It's in 4 movements in pairs that are linked together. The first 2 are connected, the last 2 are connected. It has a motto theme. Da, 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 da. That's basically the motto theme. It happens in all the movements, and it's just glorious. It has one of the best endings you'll ever hear in your life. Oh my God, it's, trumpets going da 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 bum 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 bum. Then the timpani go bum boom 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 bum boom 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 bum boom boom boom. While the organ's sitting there going like wah, this. Oh my God. There's nothing more exciting. It's just phenomenal. Violin Concerto number 3. He wrote 3 violin concertos that are excellent. The first 2 we almost never hear, and they're lovely and beautifully written, but the third is special. It's one of the great romantic violin concerti, and most great violinists actually at some point or another record it because there aren't that many great romantic violin concertos. There just aren't. And this is definitely one of them, and it's beautifully tuneful, and again, it's just thrilling, and it cheats the clock. It goes like the wind, and it's a big work, a very substantial work. I've seen it a couple of times live. You don't see it that often. It doesn't get the sort of attention, it doesn't have the cred of like, Beethoven or Brahms or the virtuoso, extravagance of Tchaikovsky, because there's a whole Russian school that does nothing but play Tchaikovsky, and that keeps that one up there, but it's a first-class piece of music. All the way through, from beginning to end. Number 5. Well, I waited a little bit, but here it is. The Carnival of the Animals. Oh, yes. Saint-Saëns refused to publish it in his lifetime because he was afraid he wasn't going to be taken seriously. Well, you didn't have to worry about that. He wasn't going to be taken seriously whether he published it or not. But now that no one takes him seriously, it couldn't do any harm. The Carnival of the Animals is delightful. It's so much fun. It's witty. It's charming. It's got the swan. Da, 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 da. The swan for cello. Absolutely glorious. And it's for 2 pianos and a whole host of other things. You can do it for full orchestra, or you can do it for chamber ensemble with solo strings. It doesn't make any difference. It's fun either way. There's no point in talking about it. You follow it along, and keep track of what all the little animals are, including fossils and a couple of pretty klutzy pianists who tend in many performances to make them sound klutzier than Saint-Saëns intended. You can ham it up too much. That's the only danger in this work, but it's otherwise just fantastically witty. Then now those are sort of the basics. The next 5 are, if you're getting into it a little bit more deeply, the 6 Etudes for piano, opus 111. These are just brilliant, virtuosic, bubbly keyboard jeux d'esprit, games. They're so much fun to listen to. His piano music gets very, very little attention. The last of the Etudes, I think it's the last of them, is a toccata, which is a touch piece, a piece that's almost in perpetual motion with lots of rapid movement, based on the finale of his 5th piano concerto, which we are going to talk about shortly. So give a little of his piano music a shot. Why don't you? If you're a keyboard person, if you like Chopin, if you like Chopin's Etudes, if you like Debussy, if you like that piano stuff, go for it. His piano music is exquisite. It's tons of fun. The Cello Concerto No. 1. This is a brilliant work. It's a 1-movement, 3-in-1 concoction, about 20 minutes long, maybe a little less. Again, with first-class melodies. It's a Lisztian work. In other words, Liszt used to write like his first piano concerto, where all the movements are related to each other based on shared themes and whatnot. That's what this is. It's that kind of a work. It is very popular among cellists. He wrote 2 cello concertos, by the way, and they're both excellent. And it gets a little bit of attention. It's not big and long, like, for example, the Dvorak Cello Concerto or some of the others. So it doesn't get as much play as it used to, because people think that a concerto now has to fill up a half of a program and it has to be a certain length. And these are a bit too short. That's not bad for listening at home. Short is good. It's always good. You can play it when you have the right amount of time, and it's adorable and incredibly lovable. His piano trios. I wanted to do something with some of his chamber music because he was a fabulous composer of chamber music, and he wrote a ton of it. I mean, he wrote violin sonatas, he wrote string quartets, he wrote cellos, cello things. I think he wrote cello sonatas. I don't remember. I was just doing Mendelssohn, so he wrote cello sonatas. It gets all confused in my brain, so I'm sorry about that. But he wrote a great deal of chamber music, and it's very, very good quality stuff. And his 2 piano trios are delightful. Piano trios are wonderful for beginners who are getting into chamber music because the medium itself has a lot of natural color. You've got a piano, you've got a violin, you've got a cello, you've got all the possible combinations between them, but you also have that sort of clarity and purity of line that you tend to look for in great chamber works. And his trios are just lovely. First-class, beautiful pieces. Then we're back to the piano concertos. Number 5, the Egyptian. Yes, it's called the Egyptian because that's where he wrote it. The only Egyptian part is the middle movement, which is quite exotic. It has a somewhat oriental or orientalist feel to it. It's got 3 quiet taps on El Gongo here. It goes ba-da-dum, bum, boom, ba-da-dum, bum, boom, da-da-dum, bum, boom. You almost never hear it. In most performances, they just don't bring it out. They have no feel for the exoticism of the music. It's a tragedy. But the work is fabulous. The finale is incredible. And the finale, like I said, is one of the Etudes. The Opus 111, the last of them, I think, the toccata based on the finale of the Egyptian Concerto. And it's tremendous. Now, by the time Saint-Saëns wrote the Egyptian Concerto, it was like in the 1900s or so, I don't know, the late 1890s or something. He was starting to sound a little reactionary and regressive by the standards of the more radical music that was being written at the time. But we don't care anymore. We're not living in the time. It makes no difference. All we care about is how beautiful it is. And the 5th concerto is not only beautiful, it's exciting as hell. It's so much fun to listen to. So give that one a shot. And last but not least, the aforementioned opera, Samson and Dalilah. Well, we all know the story, don't we? Originally, Saint-Saëns wrote it as an oratorio. He didn't intend for it to be staged at all. It's a fantastic oratorio. It works very well without the staging. Most operas work pretty well without the staging anyway, given the way they're likely to be staged these days. But oh my goodness, it's beautiful. It's a little bit, he wrote it right in the 1870s, 1880s, somewhere in there. The last scene, which you have the bacchanal, the famous bacchanal, the hoochie coochie orgy of the Philistines. You got this rhythm. It's doing that with castanets. Castanets means sex in classical music. You've got clickety, 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 click, and they're all going doing their hoochie coochie thing. It usually looks pretty silly on stage. It's much better to imagine what's going on. And then the end, where they're praising the god Dagon, and Saint-Saëns is standing there with his Samson, whoever, with between the pillars there, blinded, and the high priest and Dalilah are singing a perfect canon. Gloire à Dagon vainqueur, gloire. She does repeats it, and then there's this sort of charming music box interlude with the glockenspiel and the choir going, Dieu soit propice à nos destins, que ta justice, ô Philistins, donne la gloire dans les combats, que la victoire suive nos symbols. Well, I guess that's not the best advertisement for Samson and Dalilah, is it? To have me sing the thing to you. But I can tell you, it is so lovely. That's the thing, they're pagans and they're having this orgy and they're torturing Samson and they're doing it to the most lovely, charming, sweet music boxy music you've ever heard in your life. Okay, you just take it as it is and enjoy the heck out of it, because I did, as you can tell. And it got stuck in my head forever, so I could sing it to you now. So that's the beauty of Saint-Saëns, you see. Because whether you agree with him or disagree with him, you're going to absolutely fall in love with the music, and it will stay with you. And isn't that what great music really ought to do? I mean, let's face it. So there you have it, my friends. 10 essential works for beginners. Go for it, and keep on listening. Thanks for joining me. Take care.